It was about 2.5 years ago that John came to the company and I started to work with him. And for any of you guys who, are tired, you're kind of ready to go home, you guys are in for a treat. John is probably the best speaker that I've ever heard at the advisory board. Stories about him are legendary, so sit back, relax, enjoy the fun. So John came to the firm about 2.5 years ago, and I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think John has always associated himself with being a salesperson, which I actually was a little bit surprised about when I met him, because we all have the vision in our heads of salespeople, right? And they're probably not always the people that you also associate with kind of spirit of generosity type of stuff. They sort of seem like they're at odds with each other. And I think what is amazing about John, and what I think you guys will really pick up on, is I would say that he's one of the best commercial people I've worked with. And everything you guys were just talking about in terms of, sending flowers or pictures of flowers or having great conversations with AAs, that really encapsulates what is so special about John. I think he is someone who just every ounce of his being is spirit of generosity. And what I think is really cool, and again, he'll tell you more about this, is I think the place where it comes from is 100% just his own personal way. I think that really defines who it is. I think the interesting thing is that it actually really benefits him a lot professionally in terms of what he's trying to accomplish. So in his role, he's done a lot of different things. He came on board, he was sort of a little bit of a floater for a while, and then he became what has now morphed into a rev cycle principal, or a kind of a Mike, Thad, Kate type of person. I don't know exactly what we're calling them. I guess the marketers within the NASA world. And so in that iteration, John was playing either a direct sales role or being the relationship person behind the salesperson. And what he was able to do was close revenue, help other people close revenue, always get on the CFO's agenda, always get a response to his emails, all those things that make a sale, whether he was the person that was actually the marketer or not. And, again, I think days like this are great, and I actually think, Dustin, I heard you, not Dustin's story, your anecdote, sorry, I don't know your name. Caitlin, I thought it was a great reminder. I think having days like this to really focus on something like service and spirit of generosity is such a fantastic springboard, but it really is about what you do kind of every other day of the year, and I think John just exemplifies that. So, even if everyone writes down 1 or 2 notes and tries to do kind of 1 or 2 things like John does, I know I try to do that as well. I think it'll make all of us better and quite frankly more successful in our jobs. So, again, sit back, relax. He's the best. If you ever have a chance to sit in on his session about email etiquette, I highly recommend it, because that is a winner. It is a great one. So, John, here you go.
Wow. To kick us off, I thank you, Amanda. Since I've been back at the firm, like, you start to make connections and people start to feel very special, and Amanda is certainly one of those. When I was first asked to do this, like because I have a teaching background and I love sharing and coaching and all that stuff, I was just thrilled to death. And then within about 24 hours, I started to panic. I was like, oh, it's like, the analogy I gave some of the MAs was, it's like somebody coming and asking you to speak on the virtue of humility. And the very nature of standing up, talking about your humility, seems to totally defy the logic of that quality in you. So thankfully, I have a wife named Erin who has been a beloved partner for 20 years. We celebrate our 20-year anniversary this summer. And I started bouncing some ideas off of her, and she was like, those are all terrible. like, you are going to suck so bad. Like, please don't share any of those stories. So I went back to some of the MAs. I don't know if you've heard of the Breakfast Club, but it's something that Sarah organized. And it was a group of MAs that I just spent a little bit of time with, and I said, listen, I'm all yours. I want that session. Remind me how you're going to feel, how you're going to think. Like, how can I be encouraging in any shape or form? And they actually gave me some specific, honest feedback. So here it is. Don't talk about what you do at ABC unless it is relevant. Good feedback. Be personal, energetic, inspirational, and funny, but don't try too hard in any one of those areas. And then they said, please end on time. So, that is what we're going to run with. I'm borrowing Wes's watch because it's very cool, but that'll help me keep on time. So I used to be, I was trained in, let me hold on to that. We're going to, I have a video on YouTube. That was one of the things I wanted to kick us off. Amanda's seen it. it basically is 5 minutes of me dancing, and it now has over 2,000 views. It has, the thing that made me laugh the most, I launched it 4 years ago, was that there are tons of people watching it in China. There was just something special about me dancing and some Chinese person just watching me dance. But because I wasn't able to show the video, I did want to bring some pictures. And so I'm going to frame these pictures. Don't show it yet.
Okay.
So I have 4 children, ages 16 to 8. Girl, boy, which because I'm OCD makes me feel very complete. Seriously, so the best sales job I did was getting child number 4. Because I was like, babe, I can't even come home if there's only 3, it's odd. But I was also the youngest of 4. So I have 2 older brothers. I grew up in the 80s, and I was very close to my sister, who was the next one up. So she was 2 years older than me. Her name was Liz, and we just had a very close relationship. We're both very close to our parents. We weren't as close to our brothers, but the 2 of us, it was very special. And when I graduated from high school, she made an album that was just very special. It was like her kind of ode to me. Like she was just like, wow, this has been a great run. You should be very proud. And the first picture I'm going to show is like the first section, from the first section of the album. If we can get it up. Yes. I'm talking about spirit of generosity here. Okay, so literally the first part of the album was like my football games and scores and pictures of trophies. It was the most magical, like, oh my gosh, I really am special. And and obviously partly I'm sharing was because I wanted you all to know how exceptionally handsome I was when I was 18. But the second part of the album, which is really what I'm going to share, is she and I, because of our relationship with our mom, so, our parents did a great job teaching us how to be successful, how to think. My dad would say things like, remember, life is a competition, like, come prepared, those sorts of things. And it was all about, love of learning, hard work, self-discipline, all that stuff. My mom was the opposite extreme. And so the second half of the album was all these pictures of her and me dancing together, because we took dance for like 6 years. So while my dad had us playing football, soccer, not Liz playing football, but all of us in all these sports, I played 3 sports a year. My mom had us taking ballet from the time I was 5. So I took 3 years of ballet, and then I said, Mom, this isn't working. This is really awkward. So she's like, okay, you can take tap and jazz. So I took tap and jazz all the way through middle school. So this album is filled with me in these ridiculous outfits, all of them negated by my wife, Erin. All of them, except for this. This next one's the only one I could show. That is me right there, in the 6th grade. Does anybody know the musical? Think of the outfits. Does anybody know the music? Yes! Sound of Music. I was a professional actor. So because my mom, like, I'm not kidding, my mom had us, she was like driving me all over Maryland trying out for musicals and stuff. And I got a gig at the Harlequin Dinner Theater in Maryland, and I made $4.20 a show. Had a 3-month run as Kurt. And if you know the musical, that means I was Fa. You guys remember Do, Re, Mi? I was Fa. It's wonderful. So other than to make you giggle, and again, reinforce that I was very handsome, I wanted to use these 2 pictures as a frame, because one of the other things that one of the MAs shared was very powerful for me. And that is, if you think about the football frame, if you think about the frame that is predominantly, sort of the traditional line coming from the dad. Listen, life's a fight, life's a game. Listen, it's competitive. If you want to be competitive, you need to be fast, you need to be strong, you need to be smart, you need to do X and Y and Z. And my mom's whole run was more like, but gosh, that's not what life is all about. Like, my mom's run with all of us was about faith and generosity and compassion. I mean, I could do, obviously, 20 minutes on my mom. We lost her to cancer in 1999. She was just an exceptional woman. But just one little snippet of how she modeled this and impacted this in my life was that from the time I was in the 5th grade till the time I was in the 10th grade, there was always another young person teenager living permanently in our house. Like, my mom collected teenagers like weird women collect cats, okay? And growing up, like, I had all these normal friends. All my friends lived with their parents. But my brothers and sisters, oh my gosh, I mean, drug addicts and all this stuff. And they would just come in, move. From my mom's perspective, it's like her home was their home. And again, it was a different era, but a very special woman. So with that as the frame, what this MA came to me and it said, you know, kind of, and I'm not going to share because it was very personal. They said, you know, they just said, when they think about the spirit of the generosity, they get it in terms of the big picture. But basically this MA said, John, right now, this week, this month, I feel like I'm in a dogfight. I'm in a dogfight. I get visits or I get fired. That's where I am. And it's hard. It's hard when you think about being asked, like, to use this frame. It's like you're in a football game and I'm up here saying, do a little jazz hands, you know. It's like, boom, somebody knocks you out. So I just wanted to do two things. And the second one is not very encouraging. And that is to say that on a fundamental level, I hope you'll track with me for the next 15 minutes because I hope it'll be encouraging to your heart. But I get that. I get that. I get that you all would love to just be kind to everyone and whatever, but you have a job to do and you have things and you have to balance and find that efficiency. The thing that I'll share at age 44, and Amanda, anybody else would confirm this as well, is even though you're feeling that tension right now, it never goes away. You don't get to be a dedicated advisor and have that go away. You don't get to become a husband or wife and have that go away. Like this tension between the virtues that make us, that give us a competitive advantage. Those things that we need to do to be efficient, to be successful, all of those things. And then the more intangibles, the softer side that make us connected to human beings, make us feel things like love and beauty and wonder and all of those things. There's always that tension, always that trade-off. So my heart today, and you guys have been so gracious thus far, and it like winds me up like a puppy. Like it just is to share just some thoughts. And again, I'm not going to be Tony Robbins, ABC, do this and have a successful life. It's going to hopefully come across as very personal. But there is two ways that I think about the spirit of generosity that I think you'll find interesting, if not beneficial. So I want to kind of jump into that. So if you remember anything other than me being an exceptional dancer, okay, I want you to remember this: reps and ripples. Everybody say that. Reps and ripples. Can you tell I used to teach junior high? Anyway, reps and ripples. That's it. Those are the two insights. Those are the two things that I'm going to run with. So the first, when I think about moments of wow, I think about another extreme would be like being the hero. Okay, one of the things, and again, I fully supportive of everything Scott's doing. I think it's brilliant. I think we should all be looking for those. But one of the things that I think about, so I've been here 2.5 years. I've been engaging with CFOs and line levels in the context of delivery, sales, all this stuff. I mean, I can count the moments of wows. I mean, it's single digits, folks. Those are special things if they're defined as truly someone responding to our ethic of service in a way that's really pow. And then I started thinking, like, you know, and I don't want to go here because emotionally it's so heavy, but when I started thinking about, you know, what happened in Newtown and what happened in Boston, you know, those things all of us think, would I have run to that? Like, so I'm framing it in the context of, man, I have an opportunity to be a hero, okay? Like to do something special. When I used to be a teacher, I would frame it in the context of, gosh, I hope that I can make a difference in someone's life. But do you understand the problem with all of that? Like it's just, that's a really high bar. And so what I mean by reps is that if we start to think more of the spirit of generosity in terms of every single person that we interact with every single day, for me, it's just less pressure. Like, I don't think in terms of, oh my gosh, I have to make sure and be on and all that stuff, and did they like me or did they not like me? But it is a frame for me that just encourages me. It's like you have a bad day, you wake up the next day and you get another run at it. You do something silly, like one or two of the stories I may share is where kind of my spirit of generosity led to an awkward moment. So those things where you just miss. But if you think about this in the context of, you know what, I've got a job to do, it's hard, I feel a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. If you think about, there's something about the human interaction, there's something about spending time with a team member or making a nice comment, there's that buzz of feeling like you're helping, that you're making a difference in their life, and it's just really helpful. But the second is my favorite, but I'm going to tell you a story before that. So the second is ripple. So like when I think about the way I think about this, sometimes with my kids I frame, like most of my qualities are really quirky. And so because my kids get embarrassed by them, I call them superpowers. And I say, that's just me. It's like Spider-Man has his things. Like, this is just me. So one of my superpowers that I tell my kids is that I have this, and I always tell them, I'm like, it's the worst superpower ever, is like I have this incredible sense of smell. Like I can smell anything from like miles away. It's unbelievable. But my nose is most drawn to and attached to foot odor. So, if anybody, and don't do this, like I'll get really pissed if one of the guys takes off their shirt, because I'll just short circuit. I mean, takes off their shoes, not their shirt. That would be awkward. So again, like foot odor, like I could be teaching class or something, I could be walking through whatever, the gravelly, gross smell of foot odor, like I'm like, oh my gosh. So some of you got to be marketers. So this is just a quick plain story about that, okay? So tons of funny things happen on the road, but my superpower, one of them, then I'm going to share about the other one, is this thing of foot odor. So I always take the window. I got bumped up to first class, and this really bulky, burly man comes in, sits, seems nice. I seem real friendly, but I don't talk to anybody on planes. And you know, he starts doing his thing. I'm like reading before I'm getting ready to fall asleep. And then right as we start to take off, he takes off his shoes. But we're literally, like normally I would go move seats or whatever, but he takes off his shoes and all of a sudden I'm, like literally I'm freaking out. And then he's like kind of dozing off, but he ordered a glass of red wine. And so they come and they put this glass of red wine on his thing with his shoes, and he's got bare feet on, the worst smelling feet ever. So the combination of the two is making me go, like literally I'm gonna blow chunks all over first class, and I'm like, we're taking off. So in a complete panic, I'm like, what do I have in my bag that can help with my superpower? So the only thing I can find is my daughter's raspberry lemonade chapstick, okay? So instead of putting that on my lips, like I start putting it on the top and rubbing it all over my nose. I'm like, I have this Vaseline glow all over my face, and I'm like, okay, I spelled raspberry lemonade and his feet. I'm like, this is so awful. And so then I'm like, okay, let's look for mints or anything. I find Altoids, and I start breaking them up. And I literally stick the Altoids up my nose so that I don't puke. And again, I'm like going like this. I'm starting to make sounds. And then what do? Of course, I sneeze. So I sneeze Altoids all over. And it's right at this time that it finally leveled out. And the woman comes to me, and I have white stuff. It looked like I was doing coke. It really did. Like I have all this Vaseline and things all over. So again, most of my superpowers are like that. But this next one I'm going to share is a little bit more beneficial. And that is, and I call it ripples. And what I mean by that is that when I move into an interaction, when I get introduced to a new DA or an MA, when I meet a member, no matter what they are, when I go in and I see like our lives as like these little dots. And if your dot's going, it's either going up, like you're having a good day, like you're in the zone, you're doing your job, it's neutral, or it's going down. And my dot interacts with your dot in some capacity. Either we do a strat planning session together, or we get introduced or something like that. And I started thinking about like how my dot impacts your dot, and then your dot goes on to hit other dots, okay? So think of it in the simplest form. I know you all are smart people, you're tracking with me. So somebody's not having a great day. Like my love language is words of encouragement. So I love trying to encourage people. So you sense, if you have any intuition at all, you're like, they're not having a good day. And you say something kind, or you send them a note, or you interact in some way that makes them feel better. Now, because they have a better day, what happens after that? It means their next meeting goes well, interacting with people. They have something else where could have been a disaster, but it's not quite a disaster. That's what I'm talking about, the ripples, all right? Now, the wonderful thing about the spirit of generosity for me, again, we think about all the competitive virtues, if you will, all of those qualities in us. And what the spirit of generosity does for me is it just infuses this human connection in a way that helps me to see the ripples. And those ripples, again, are when you meet a stranger, have some sort of interaction. But over time, those ripples, that currency of grace, of compassion, of being gracious, obviously is what develops friendships. I mean, that's the deeper part of the relationship. And you start experiencing the ripples and then the ripples coming back. But when and sometimes I talk to my kids about this stuff, but when I say like my superpower, the ripples, what has happened over time, like again, I'm 44, I've got 4 kids that are growing up. What's happened over time is that now, instead of just seeing the daily ripples, I see the ripples in extended periods of time. And one of the reasons I asked Wes to come is because I want to talk about Wes and sort of this evolution in a way with somebody here who's very special to me. And so what I think about, obviously Wes and I had worked together, and then he was pulled into the integrated model to be one of my 3 DAs. And when I think about our relationship, we already had a good relationship and we connect on a number of levels. But what Wes didn't know at that time was I wasn't thinking about him in the context of can we serve our members well? Can we, grow? Can we both hit our performance metrics together? I was thinking about our friendship and our relationship in the context of I have a limited, like a defined period of time where I have the opportunity to influence, inspire, encourage the rest of his life. So when I would see Wes, when we would spend strat sessions together, when we would go on the road, again, don't get me wrong, this wasn't like, training sessions, you're not even married yet, how do you be a good dad? It wasn't anything. I use it as an example to say it infused our relationship and friendship with purpose, with meaning, with a bigger picture. Now, I can joke all around a bit, about the superpowers, but it's honestly grounded in something that is really, really tangible for me. And that is because I had the privilege of serving as a high school teacher for 5 years, and then working with youth in the context of our church in Charlotte and our church here. I'm not bragging when I say this number, but I have somewhere between 700 and 1,000 young people that are connected with me on Facebook that I knew at some point in their life. Like they were either my students or they were students' brother or something like that. And so the reason this ripple principle has become so powerful for me is because of Facebook. I get to see visibly them now having 4 kids on their own. I get those special notes, not often, but those special notes every once in a while where, a student, one of them that I didn't even feel that close to, one recently wrote and said, you know what, I didn't deserve to make it on the 7th grade baseball team, but you let me on and you were nice to me when I was really awkward and had no friends. And now he's like a senior pastor in the Anglican church with 3 kids and just having an exceptionally impactful life. Those are the ripples. Those are the ripples. And I'm going to close this out with a story. Actually, we're doing okay on time. I'm going to close this out with a story, but I hope that on some level, and even on the practical level, that you all can leave here and feel a sense of, gosh, I get this, but I'm going to be more encouraged to do it more because I interact with people all the time. To sort of infuse a sense of purpose and energy. And also think about the ripples. Now, before I finish with a story, one thing that I wanted to emphasize with you all because of where you are is that you all, when I look at your ripples, it's not just, I feel like Wes is going to be an exceptional dad, lawyer, own his own business, whatever, like have a tremendous impact on the world. One of the things that's fun when I look about you all is how not only are you going to grow in this company, and it's kind of fun from my vantage point to think, some of you it's like X may work for Y, and then later, Y may be, there's going to be this thing play out in advisory board, but many of you are going to connect outside of here. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's awesome. Think about that. Think about that. This may not be your end game. And that's okay, but you're smart, you're talented, you have everything you need to be successful. Anyway, so the final story is this, and it's a very personal one, but it's one where a couple things come together, particularly when I think about moments of wow. So I mentioned my 4 beautiful children. They have all 4 been diagnosed with a very unique medical condition called Chiari-1. And it's named after a doctor. It's very rare. It's called Chiari-1 skull malformation. And in layman's terms, it means their brains sit too low in their skull. So, in terms of daily being a challenge, gosh, I mean, we obviously have friends that have special needs, children, and all that stuff. Even dealing with allergies is more traumatic on a day-to-day basis. But the challenge with this Chiari, once it's identified, is that they, we just have to be really diligent about symptoms. So there's certain things they can't do, but basically all of them were diagnosed between the ages of 4.5 and 7, and then we sort of have to watch how this plays out. So with our oldest, that we found out the first, she had a decompression surgery with Dr. Ben Carson. He's like the most famous brain surgeon up in Hopkins. And it went well. Again, what they do is they do a couple of things. They shave the skull, they go in, they expand the dura, all of that stuff. You guys don't need those details. But it's just to set the stage that we have this thing. When it emerges, it's very hard. We went through the surgery, and it was great. That was back, I was actually at corporate executive board. So last year, around summer, moving into the fall, we found out that our second daughter, Jessica, age 11, was going downhill. Her symptoms, there were things going on with her body. It got really, really difficult. But it was because of, obviously we have friends, we're supported with folks at church or whatever, but there was something, you can be in this family, you can be in the advisory board family and feel like, yes, people are going to be gracious, they're going to be kind. But folks literally came out of the woodwork. As that little network that knew about the pending surgery came out, more and more people, I had senior folks be like, John, take 3 months off. Like, don't even think about whatever you need to do. Blank check. And again, I was like, it's okay. It's sort of this undercurrent, but we're gonna work through it. We're gonna schedule the surgery in December. And then Wes and Jenna Block and some others. So we go, we have Jesse's surgery, and instead of sending flowers or, just a nice note, or like I'm friends with the 2 DAs that I just referenced, together they worked to put together a gift box. And they got the green light from Amanda. And again, they didn't spend a ton of money. But there was just this moment when we had gone through the surgery, which was so scary. She was out. We knew she was going to be okay. But there was this moment when the box arrived. And she's standing there. She still has all the tubes. We have to help her, and she goes. And it's just watching my 11-year-old open up this box and pull out slippers and crayons and all of this stuff, and some of it wasn't even age appropriate, and she didn't even care. Like, some of it, was like a novel by Dostoevsky, and it was like, wow, they kind of missed on that. And even the bunny slippers were too short, but it was just this wonderful, wonderful moment. And so, again, by this point, Jenna, Wes, this goes into the friendship part. This isn't just, gosh, this is my boss, that sort of stuff. But because we're the advisory board, because Jenna and Wes know that it's not only me in need, but I'm actually in a hospital, that they also called the deli and ordered lunch for all the nursing staff on the floor. And so we get the box, and then I come out, and I didn't even really know about that, and then all of a sudden I'm having literally one after the other, about 23 very attractive young nurses coming up to me being like, oh my gosh, you ordered us sandwiches. And I'm like, yes, you're welcome. That was really, I'm glad. I have no idea what they were talking about. But it was really sweet. So it's just literally going to end on that. Sweet story, moment of wow. This is a very special place. I want nothing more than for you all to be successful here. But ultimately, I don't really care. Okay? I want you to be successful wherever you are, and I want your life to feel and be extraordinary. Thanks.